Frequently asked questions in the first part of the IELTS test.
City and country. Which part of your country do most people live in? Can you tell me about the main industries in your country? Is it easy to travel around your country? Do you think your country has changed a lot since you were a child? Do you know something about the history of your hometown? Are there any interesting places I can visit? What do you like the most about living in your hometown? Can you compare your hometown with big modern cities like Beijing? What are the advantages and disadvantages of living in your hometown? Can you describe the city where you live now? Are there any things you dislike about the city? How would you improve the city where you live?
Job. What do you do? Why did you choose this job? What is your routine work? Tell me about a typical working day. What do you like or dislike about your job? Do you like your job? If you don't, what kind of job would you prefer? Do you have any plans to change your job in the future?
Study. What subject do you study? Why did you choose this subject? What do you like most about your studies? Are there any things you dislike about your studies? What do you find most difficult in your studies? What kind of qualifications or certificates do you hope to get? What do you hope to do after graduation?
Childhood. Where did you grow up? What is a good place for children to grow up? Where did you usually play? Who is the most important person in your childhood? Is childhood now different from the time when you were a child?
Films. Do you enjoy watching films? How often do you watch films? What kind of films do you like to watch? Do people generally prefer watching films at home or in the cinema? Would you like to be in a film?
Public transport. What kind of public transport is available where you live? What kind of public transport do you use most often? What problems are there with public transport where you live? How would you improve public transport where you live? Do you prefer to use public or private transport?
Animals. Tell me about some of the animals in your country. Which animals do you like? Tell me some of the ways animals are used in your country, for example, agriculture. How do people in your country usually feel about animals?
Shopping. Who does the main food and household shopping in your family? What kind of shopping do you usually do? What kinds of shops do you prefer? What time of day do you prefer to go shopping? What is the worst thing about shopping?
Housework. Who usually does the housework? For example, cooking and cleaning where you live. How is the housework shared in your family? What do you think is the most important household task? Do you have any ideas about how housework has changed in recent years in your country? Do you enjoy housework, and what kind of housework do you like?
Food and restaurants. What kinds of food do you like? Is there any food you don't like? Do you usually cook at home? Are there any special occasions when people in your country go to a restaurant? What are the advantages and disadvantages of eating in restaurants?
Free time. When do you have free time? What do you like doing in your free time? What activities are most popular in the place where you live? Do you think that free time is important in people's lives? Would you like to spend your free time with friends or with family?
School. Which middle school did you study in? Is it close to your home? How did you get to school every day? What did you like the best about that school? Is there anything you didn't like about your school? If you were the president of the school, what changes would you like to make? What did you think of the teachers there?
Hobbies, entertainment. Do you have any hobbies? How did you become interested in that? How much time do you spend on that? Do you prefer relaxing at home or going out in the evening? When you go out for the evening, what would you like to do? Is there any kind of entertainment you dislike? Why do you think that people have hobbies?
Travels. Do you like traveling? How often do you travel and why? What kinds of places are you most interested in and why? What places have you enjoyed visiting and why? What do you normally do when you are in a new place? Which do you prefer, traveling by yourself or with friends, and why? What does traveling mean to you?
Festivals. What are the special days celebrated in your country? What do you think is the most important festival in your country? In what way do people celebrate the festival? Do people prepare any special food for the occasion? Which do people prefer, to spend it with family or with friends? How did people celebrate the festival in the past? How has the way been changed and why? Do you think that it is important to have festivals?
Friends. What kind of people can be your friends? How do you make friends? How much time do you spend with friends? What do you normally do with your friends? Do you prefer to spend more time with friends or with family? Would you rather have one close friend or many common friends? How important is friendship to you? When you have trouble, do you turn to friends or family? Talking about hometowns and jobs. 1. Talking about hometowns. Frequently asked questions.
Where do you come from? Can you describe your hometown? Do you know something about the history of your hometown? What is the weather like there? Are there any interesting places I can visit? What do you miss the most about your hometown? Can you compare your hometown with big modern cities like Beijing?
Dialogue study. Wang Xiao and Li Chen meet each other at a university library.
Hi, I think you're a friend of my friend, Zhang Juan.
Yes, I know Zhang Juan. How do you know her?
I work with her. How about you?
I met her at the swimming pool. We both love swimming.
Where do you come from? I mean, where is your hometown?
I am from the northeastern part of China, Changchun, the capital of Jilin province. And you?
Well, I was born in a small village outside of Hangzhou, but I also grew up in Hangzhou. It's a couple of hours away from Shanghai.
Yes, I've heard of it before. It's quite famous. Definitely a place on my to-visit list. What is the weather like there?
It's probably not as cold in the winter as Changchun is, and hotter in the summertime. We don't get a lot of snow, but there's a rainy season. How's the weather in Changchun?
Well, cold, of course, in the winter. Many people think it's cold in Changchun all year round, but it's really not. The summers are really beautiful, not too hot, about 32 or 33 degrees.
Wow, I didn't think it would get that warm there. Maybe I should go and see Changchun next summer. Are there any interesting places I can visit in Changchun?
Yes, there are a couple of places I would highly suggest that you visit, but the best time to come is in the winter time. There's skiing on the Changbai Mountains, skating along the Sunghua River, and a special ice lantern sculpture festival, too. Did you also know that Jilin is known for its deer antlers, for medicinal purposes? Anyway, I could go on and on about my hometown. What about Hangzhou? What are the interesting places to visit? I bet there are a lot of tourists each year.
Yes, Hangzhou is usually full of tourists. Everybody knows that the area around the West Lake is really beautiful, and there are a lot of famous sites there, too. You should see the West Lake during the moonlight. It's so beautiful, especially during the Autumn Moon Festival. I really miss my hometown.
Me too. There's really no place like home. What do you miss the most about your hometown?
You mean besides my mother's cooking? Well, I suppose it would be walking along the West Lake during a misty morning or a beautiful sunset. What do you miss about Changchun?
My family. I have a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins living in Changchun. I'm the only one who lives outside of Changchun.
Wow, I can't even imagine being on my own like that. That must have been really hard at first.
Yes, it really was. When I first moved to Beijing, my cousins were really envious. They thought that Beijing was obviously better than Changchun because it is the capital of China. In fact, I thought so too at first. But now, I don't think that is much.
What do you mean?
I mean that there are definitely some similarities, like both are modern capital cities, but as the center of education, culture, and politics, Beijing is definitely more exciting. There are many opportunities to grow and learn. Like in Beijing, you can easily watch a variety of international standard performances, and you will be better informed.
But it sounds like you think Beijing is better than Changchun.
Let me finish. There are definitely more opportunities in Beijing, but I still think that Changchun is a much friendlier place. People are not so busy, and their lives are not so hectic. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Do you think Beijing is a better place to live in than Hangzhou?
No, not really. I think that Hangzhou is much more beautiful than Beijing. In my opinion, Beijing is developing too rapidly, so pollution has become a big problem. You know how everyone complains about all the cars on the road, too. Traffic jams are so common that if you don't meet one when you're traveling, you feel that something must be wrong. Another thing about Beijing is that there are so many modern buildings, but the city has lost some beauty. Much of the history of Beijing is hidden now, after lots of the old houses were demolished, except for some of the tourist sites.
That's a shame. What about Hangzhou? What kind of history does Hangzhou have?
Hangzhou was founded about 2,200 years ago in the Qin dynasty. It was also the capital city for the Song dynasty, and it has always been famous for its natural beauty. Now Hangzhou is known as a place for silk and for Longjing tea.
You've convinced me to go. I'll have to visit Hangzhou someday soon. Say, I've got to go. I'm sorry we didn't even introduce ourselves to each other. I'm Li Chen.
I'm Wang Xiao. I've enjoyed chatting with you.
Thanks, me too. We'll have to get together another time.
Yes, definitely. Take care.
2.
Bye.
Talking about jobs. Frequently asked questions.
What do you do? Why did you choose this job? What is your routine work? Tell me about a typical working day. What do you like or dislike about your job? Do you like your job? If you don't, what kind of job would you prefer? What job would you like to be doing in 10 years' time?
Dialogue study. Wang Xiao meets Li Chen, who is waiting to meet with their mutual friend, Zhang Juan. They start chatting while they are waiting. Hi, Li Chen. How nice to see you here.
Hi, Wang Xiao. I'm supposed to meet Zhang Juan at 12 o'clock. Actually, if you have a few minutes, I'd like to ask you about your job.
Sure. What do you want to know?
Well, I'm thinking of looking for another job, but I want to find out as much information about other jobs before I make a decision.
Sure, no problem. But let me ask you first, what do you do?
I work in a small computer company, mostly doing bookkeeping. It's all right for now, but I don't really see myself working there long term.
But why did you choose this job?
I guess I chose it because it was in my field, and the salary and benefits were quite good for a new university graduate. I've been working there for almost 2 years now, but the work is really not very interesting.
What do you mean? What do you do every day?
Well, every day I sit in front of a computer and enter data. Then I check to make sure everything is accurate. Occasionally, I'll get a chance to work on a special project. It's not exactly what I expected.
It sounds to me like you're unhappy in your job. What job would you like to be doing?
I don't know. Something more interesting, though. I'd prefer to work with other people instead of being all alone in a room in front of a computer. Now let me ask you about your job. What kind of work do you do?
I work in an import-export company. I'm responsible for making sure the orders are filled properly and contacting our customers in other countries to make sure they receive their orders and are satisfied with them.
That sounds interesting. Tell me about a typical day.
Each day is different from the next. Some days are really great and everyone will be satisfied. Other days, it seems that everyone is complaining to me. Some days I'll be making phone calls all day, taking orders, explaining our products, and talking with our overseas customers. Other days I'll be in the warehouse, making sure the orders are being filled.
It sounds very exciting to me, but how do you like your job?
On the whole, I like it, but there are some days when it is really tough.
How did you get your job?
I went to a job fair and had an interview with the import-export company. They were interested in hiring me, but I wasn't so sure. I also had an interview with a joint venture company that seemed more promising.
Why did you choose this job?
It was really hard to choose between the two offers. I think that basically the job in the import-export company looked more interesting, even though the starting salary was lower. The joint venture company offered a higher salary, but the chances to move up in the company did not seem very good.
It looks like you made the right choice. Do you think you'll be working in the same job in 10 years' time?
Quite possibly. I enjoy the challenges and feel that I am contributing to the company. I'm satisfied with my job for now and would not be surprised if I stayed for a long time.
That's the kind of job I want to find. Wish me luck.
Good luck
Talking
to
about
you.
studies and schools. 1. Talking about studies. Frequently asked questions.
What do you major in? What subject do you study? Why did you choose this subject? What do you find most difficult in your studies? What do you find most interesting in your studies? What would you like to do after graduation?
Dialogue study. Wang Xiao and Li Chen meet each other unexpectedly on the bus.
Hello again, Li Chen. I'm glad to see you again. Funny that we should meet on the bus. I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about the last time we met, and I have a few more questions for you.
Hi, Wang Xiao. What do you want to know? I'm all ears.
Well, you said that you're working as a bookkeeper right now. But when you were in university, what did you major in? Did you study accounting?
Actually, no. That's the funny thing. I studied English and international trade. So, I did take a course in accounting, but it wasn't at all the major focus of my studies.
I don't quite understand then how you ended up in your current job.
It's a long story. I'll tell you about it another time. What was your major?
I majored in business management. My program covered all aspects of business, so I took accounting as well. Let's see, there were also marketing, finance, business English, tax, and law courses too. I've forgotten quite a lot of the courses we took, but I really enjoyed my major overall.
You're really lucky to have chosen the right major for you. My roommate in college really hated studying English and international trade.
What did he find most difficult about English and international trade?
To tell you the truth, he just hated studying English. He was so shy, and he barely spoke a word during English class. Anyway, I think it's hard to choose a major when we were just in high school. And I know some people who really ended up in the wrong program.
Did your friend graduate?
Yes, eventually. He was put back a year because he didn't pass enough courses. But he managed to fulfill all the requirements and graduated a year after I did.
What were his plans after graduation?
He wanted to get a job, but he felt he deserved a vacation first. So he planned a big trip to Kunming and Lijiang. Then he found a job working in an office, which he actually enjoyed for a change. Last I heard, he was still in the same job.
What did you find interesting in your studies? Accounting?
No, accounting was just so-so. I really liked marketing the best. It's so exciting just trying to think of how to draw customers to use your product. If only I could find a job in marketing. Well, I'm still looking for another job, you know.
Hang in there. You'll find a good job one of these days.
I really hope so. Thanks for the encouragement. Hey, this is my stop. I'd better get off here.
It was really great to see you again. Take care.
You too. Bye. 2. Talking about schools. Frequently asked questions.
Which middle school did you study in? Was it close to your home? How did you get to school every day? What did you like the best about that school? Is there anything you didn't like about your school? If you were the president of the school, what changes would you like to make? What did you think of the teachers there?
Dialogue study. Wang Xiao and Li Chen meet in a restaurant. Hey, Wang Xiao, over here.
Hi there, Li Chen. Nice restaurant you've chosen.
I come here all the time. I'm one of their regulars. The food's good and the price is right.
Sounds good to me. Hey, look at those middle school kids over there. I bet that's the first time they're going out to eat in a restaurant all by themselves.
Remember when you were a middle school student and you dreamed about changing the world? I had so many big plans back then.
Me too. I loved middle school. Best years of my life, except for the last 2 years when we really had to buckle down and study hard. Hey, if you were the president of your middle school, what changes would you like to make?
That's easy. First of all, I'd change the classes to start later in the morning, and then I'd eliminate classes on weekends. I'd make sure there were plenty of clubs and activities for students to join, and I'd set aside one afternoon a week for students to just do activities.
You're dreaming, but it sounds great to me.
Well, what did you like best about middle school? If you can remember that far back.
I love the camaraderie of being with my friends all day and having teachers who knew me and cared about me. I don't know. College life and the working world are really different. People have their own opinions, and it seems that they just aren't willing to agree on even the smallest things. It wasn't like that in middle school.
What middle school did you study in?
You've probably never heard of it. It's not famous at all, but I still loved it. Middle school number 72, just a couple of blocks from my parents' apartment. I used to bike to school during good weather. When I was really young, my grandmother used to take me to school in a little cart. I had so much fun back then.
My parents never let me ride a bike to school. I suppose it was because my middle school was just down the street from our home. I was probably the only middle school student who didn't even own a bike. It wasn't until my last year of middle school that I finally persuaded my parents to buy me one.
That must have been embarrassing.
Yeah, it was a little. I think my parents were a bit on the overprotective side. I just remember all the students and teachers staring at me when I first rode my bike to school. They looked like they were in shock.
What did you think of your middle school teachers?
For the most part, they were really good, conscientious, sincere, and knowledgeable. There was one teacher that everyone avoided like crazy. Unfortunately, I had her as my history teacher, and she made my life miserable. Well, actually, I probably made her life miserable too.
That's why you didn't major in history when you got to college.
You got it. Now that I think back, I'm amazed at how much a teacher can influence students. If a teacher can inspire a student, the student might end up majoring in their field. But if a teacher doesn't believe in a student's ability and then treats that student badly, the student will likely not ever enjoy that subject again.
You're absolutely right. And you know what? We should really pay our teachers better, since they are the ones who are influencing the next generation. Hey, the food's here. Let's eat.
Smells great. Let's
Talking
dig in. Holidays, festivals, and travels. 1. Talking about holidays, festivals. Frequently asked questions.
What are the special days celebrated in your country? Which is your favorite and why? What do you think is the most important festival in your country? In what way do people celebrate the festival? Do people prepare any special food for the occasion? Which do people prefer, to spend it with family or with friends? How did people celebrate the festival in the past? How has the way been changed and why? Do you think that it is important to have festivals?
Dialogue study. Wang Xiao introduces Li Chen to a foreign friend, Frank Roberts.
Hi, Li Chen. I'd like you to meet my friend, Frank Roberts. He's from Canada, and he's visiting Beijing for a few days.
Hi, Mr. Roberts. Nice to meet you.
Please call me Frank. It's nice to meet you too. What was your name again?
Li Chen. Li is my family name, and Chen is my given name.
Wang Xiao has told me a lot about you. It's nice to finally meet you in person.
Same here. Say, how do you know Wang Xiao?
We do some import-export trade together. I'm a purchaser for a large Canadian department store, and we buy quite a few goods from Wang Xiao's company.
They're one of our biggest customers in Canada. Anyway, I've invited Frank to come to Beijing many times, and now he's finally been able to find time in his busy schedule. Hey, Li Chen, what do you think we should do for lunch? It's almost lunchtime.
Why don't we go to the dumpling restaurant around the corner? It's delicious, cheap, and fast. And we can also introduce Frank to some of our favorite Chinese foods.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, let's go.
You know, Frank, dumplings are also very special too. During the Spring Festival, most Chinese families will make dumplings.
What's the Spring Festival?
That's probably the most important festival in our country. Some people call it Chinese New Year. It's a celebration marking the end of the old year and the beginning of the new year, according to the lunar calendar.
It's usually held sometime between mid-January to mid-February, depending on the lunar calendar.
So, in addition to dumplings, what else is special about the Chinese New Year?
Most people clean their houses from top to bottom, put decorations, usually red ones, on their doors and in the homes, and eat a lot of good foods.
During the Chinese New Year, it's also important to be with your family and friends, so many people will travel to their parents' home, even if they live very far away.
Yes, and they also pay a lot of visits to their close friends.
It sounds a lot like Christmas. We decorate our homes with Christmas trees, stockings, and colored lights. We eat a lot of good food, and most people spend Christmas time with their families or good friends. Oh, and we also buy Christmas presents for each other.
Chinese families will give red envelopes or hongbao to their children or friends' children. The red envelopes contain money, so it's like giving a present to the children. Also, people buy new clothes and shoes to wear for the new year, so it's also another kind of a present. Many people also like firecrackers and fireworks to celebrate.
Wow! Spring Festival sounds really great. Whoever thought of the idea sure had a good one.
How long has China been celebrating the Spring Festival?
It must be for at least a few centuries.
What was it like in the earlier days? Is it celebrated in a similar way these days?
There are many similarities still, but over time some traditions have disappeared. I think that dumplings have always been a big part of the Spring Festival.
As well as giving money to children and buying new clothes.
And also things like decorating one's home and going back to your parents' home. All of these things have been around for a long time.
So, have there been any changes at all?
Well, nowadays, firecrackers are illegal in most of the cities, so this tradition has changed, and people don't have as much time to stay at home as before, usually because they are too busy with their work.
Some people even prefer to take a holiday instead of going back to their parents' home to spend the Spring Festival. And for some rich families, buying new clothes for the new year isn't very exciting because they buy new clothes all year round.
But many of the main traditions are still kept, right?
Yes, for the majority of Chinese families, they still follow the tradition.
Hey, our dumplings are here. Let's eat. I'm starved.
They smell great. But how can we eat so many of them?
You'd be surprised at how many we can
2.
eat.
Talking about travels. Frequently asked questions.
Do you like traveling? How often do you travel and why? When do you usually travel? What kind of places are you more interested in and why? What places have you enjoyed visiting and why? What do you normally do when you are in a new place? Which do you prefer, traveling by yourself or with friends, and why? What does traveling mean to you?
Dialogue study. Li Chen is waiting for Wang Xiao. They plan to visit a bookstore and spend some time together.
What time is it? Why is Wang Xiao taking so long to get here?
Li Chen! Sorry I'm so late. I lost track of time and then I got stuck in traffic. Thanks for waiting.
I was just beginning to wonder if you would show up. Anyway, now that you're here, I can stop wondering.
I'm really sorry.
That's all right. Forget about it. Hey, where was that bookstore you wanted to show me?
Follow me. It's just around the corner. I want to look at the travel books if you don't mind. I'm planning a holiday, but I haven't exactly decided where to go. Any suggestions?
What kinds of places have you been to already?
I've almost been to all of the famous mountains in China, except for Ermeishan and, of course, Mount Everest. You know me, I much prefer climbing a mountain to seeing historic sites. What about you? Do you like traveling?
Well, it depends. I've had some really bad experiences, so I'm really cautious about traveling. On my last trip, I went to Guilin, and it rained the whole time.
That's too bad. When do you usually travel? You've got to remember to try and avoid the rainy season, especially in the south of China.
Yeah, I think that was the problem. Maybe that's why the holiday was advertised at such a low price. I'm not really planning another trip in the near future. I still need to recover from the last one. How often do you travel?
I try to go somewhere new at least once a year. It depends on my finances and my time, of course. And it's really hard to get tickets during the government holidays. But those are the only times I can travel. Anyway, I've been fortunate so far.
Besides the mountain climbing, what places have you enjoyed visiting the most?
I loved Inner Mongolia and the Three Gorges. China has an amazing range of geographical features, not to mention local cultures, dialects, and foods. I just love soaking in the local culture.
Do you always get this excited about going to somewhere new? What do you normally do when you're in a new place?
First of all, I walk along the streets and poke my nose into different markets and busy places. Then I buy a few fruits and try some of the local specialty foods. And if I'm lucky, I'll start a conversation with some of the vendors to try to find out what are the best places to go and visit during my time there. You can get a lot of information that way. And then finally, I will go back to my hotel room and start planning my itinerary.
Do you usually travel by yourself or with friends?
I prefer to travel alone or just with one friend. I really dislike going on package tours. You miss out so much by being in a tour group. Look, here's a book on Ermeishan. Maybe I should go there next. Do you want to come along?
No offense, but count me out. I am beginning to realize that I'm much more of a homebody than I thought I was. Talking about interests, hobbies, and friends. 1. Talking about interests, hobbies. Frequently asked questions.
How do you normally arrange your weekends? How do you spend your spare time? Do you have any hobbies? How did you become interested in that? How much time do you spend on that? Do you prefer relaxing at home or going out in the evening? When you go out for the evening, what do you like to do? Is there any kind of entertainment you dislike? Why do you think that people have hobbies?
Dialogue study. Wang Xiao and Li Chen finish their meal in the restaurant.
That has got to be the best meal I've ever eaten.
That was certainly one meal I won't forget. I'm stuffed. I can't eat another bite.
You did well. Hey, do you want to go out after dinner?
I can't. I wish I could, but I can't.
Why not?
I can't even move. Why, what were you thinking of doing? What kind of entertainment do you like?
I love karaoke, but I'm not a very good singer. I love going to see movies too. What else? I've seen a few concerts and plays, but those are a bit beyond my budget. How do you spend your spare time?
I usually go for walks in parks and things like that. I'm really into nature, and I love being around trees and water and mountains as much as possible.
You were born in Jilin, right? Is that why you like nature so much?
It could be, but most of my family prefer to stay at home instead of going out to walk in the parks. And I grew up in the city, not the countryside.
Then, how did you become interested in nature?
I don't really know, but ever since I was young, I've always been fascinated by plants and animals. I remember taking great care to water the plants in my home, and I was only 4 at the time. I also had a bird and a rabbit at home and played with them all the time.
That's funny, because I grew up in the countryside when I was small. Nature doesn't excite me at all. I always like being in the city, feeling the hustle and bustle of city life.
When you were a kid, what were your hobbies?
I enjoyed stamp collecting and coin collecting, though I don't do any of that now. I read a lot of books and listened to music constantly. I also played a lot of badminton and ping pong with my neighborhood friends. In fact, I still do.
Are you good at sports?
I'm not bad at ping pong, but I haven't played badminton for years.
How much time do you spend playing ping pong?
About 2 to 3 hours a week if I can. It's hard to find a good partner to play with. Do you play?
Yes, but badly. Don't look at me. I won't be able to keep up with you. Listen, all this talk about ping pong is making me hungry again. Let's finish up these dishes and then head home.
Good idea. It's getting late.
2. Talking about friends. Frequently asked questions.
Do you like friends? What kind of people can be your friends? How do you make friends? How much time do you spend with friends? What do you normally do with your friends? Do you prefer to spend more time with friends or with family? Would you rather have one close friend or many common friends? How important is friendship to you? When you have trouble, do you turn to friends or family? What is a true friend to you?
Dialogue study. Li Chen, Wang Xiao, and Frank Roberts are just finishing their lunch of Chinese dumplings.
I'm stuffed. I can't believe I ate 28 dumplings.
I'm so full I could burst. I can't believe you ate 28 dumplings too. How did you manage to fit them all in your stomach? I think I only ate about 23.
Oh, I ate at least 28. I just stopped counting after I got to 25.
I just love this. Good food, good friends. It doesn't get any better than this.
Thanks so much for lunch. It was really great. But I have to go now.
Wow, so soon? We'll have to have another meal together sometime soon.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, I'll give you a call. Thanks again.
Hey, Wang Xiao, I was just thinking how good it is to have friends like you and Frank.
You can't live without friends, can you? I'm really fortunate to have some very close friends.
Me too. Actually, my friends are all a bit different from each other. Some of them I like to study with. Others are great for going out to have a good time. I have a few groups of friends, and I do different things with each group. Why, what are your friends like? What do you normally do with them?
My friends are more like one big group. We like to go out together and have a good time. We eat good food together and laugh together. If any one of us has a problem, we help each other out.
Do you prefer to spend time with a group of friends or with just one close friend?
It doesn't really matter to me. I like both types of friendship.
I think I prefer to spend time with just one friend at a time. Perhaps that's why my friends don't even know each other.
Most of my friends have been friends since middle school.
That's amazing. How did you manage to keep such close ties with your middle school friends? How much time do you spend with your friends?
Well, some friends I see once a month or so. My closer friends, I probably see them every other week if I can.
Friends are never too busy for friends. If my friend comes to visit me, then I usually drop everything and spend time with my friend.
Yes, I do that too, but I usually like to plan ahead and make sure my friends are free before I go to visit them.
My parents tell me that in the old days, they didn't have to call ahead to ask their friends if it was okay to visit them. It was always okay to visit your friend. You didn't even have to make an appointment.
I heard that too, but things have changed a bit these days. Though if the person was my very close friend, I would be glad if they visited me, even without calling me first.
Well, that makes you a true friend to them too. What else do you think a true friend is?
I think my true friends are people who understand me and care about me. I can be totally honest with my true friends, and they accept me and are honest with me too. What is a true friend to you?
For me, a true friend is someone who will help me no matter what.
You're right, Li Chen. That's another very important characteristic of a true friend for me too.
Hey, we better get going if we want to get to the volleyball game on time.
Okay. I definitely need to do some exercise after eating all those jiaozi.
Talking about transportation and my home. Talking about transportation. Frequently asked questions.
How often do you ride a bicycle? How popular is a bicycle in your hometown? Why? What kind of transportation do most people use? How often do you take a taxi? How do you usually get to work? How do you usually get to school? Why do you use this means of transportation instead of another? How much time does it usually take you to get to work? How far do you travel to and from work each day? What are the advantages of driving a car? What are the disadvantages of driving a car?
Dialogue study. Wang Xiao and Frank Roberts chat before a morning meeting at work.
Good morning, Frank.
Hi, Wang Xiao. How are you today?
Not bad, except that the traffic was really bad this morning. It took me over an hour to get to work.
Really? How much time does it usually take you to get to work?
It depends. If there's no traffic, I can get here in 20 minutes. But if there's an accident or a traffic jam, like this morning, it can take over an hour.
How far do you travel to and from work each day?
Approximately 8 kilometers one way.
That's not far at all. In Canada, my work is 35 kilometers away from my home. It takes me about 45 minutes to drive to work. How do you usually get to work, Wang Xiao?
Well, I usually ride my electric bike, but if the weather's bad, I take the public bus.
You have an electric bike?
Yes, I bought it last year.
What are the advantages of riding an electric bike compared to a regular bike?
The biggest advantage is that an electric bike is faster than a regular bike, and it's easier than pedaling a bicycle. Compared to a car, an electric bike is cheaper and easier to park.
What are the disadvantages of electric bikes?
For one thing, I'm always worried that someone might steal it. Also, I need to recharge the battery often.
How often do you take a taxi to work?
Rarely. A taxi is too expensive to take every day. What kind of transportation do people use in Canada, Frank?
Most people prefer to drive their own car to work. Some people save gas and carpool, and there are also some people who take public transportation every day.
It's my dream to buy a car one day, Frank.
Really? Why?
Why? Well, driving a car is much more convenient than taking the bus or subway or riding a bike.
Yes, that's true most of the time.
What do you mean?
Sometimes driving a car is more tiring than taking a bus. If you're driving during rush hour, it can be stressful. And if there's an accident, then there's usually a big traffic jam too. It's also much more expensive to have a car. You have to pay for gas, parking, regular maintenance, insurance, and repairs.
I haven't thought that much about the disadvantages of owning a car.
It's good to think about both the advantages and disadvantages.
You're right, Frank. Hey, it looks like the meeting is about to begin.
Yes. Let's find some good seats. 2. Talking about my home. Frequently asked questions.
Where is it located? What kind of place do you have? Why did you choose this place to be your home? What do you like about your home? How large is your home? How many appliances do you have? Describe some of your neighbors. Could you tell me about your neighborhood? What is one drawback about the place where you live? What is your ideal home?
Dialogue study. Wang Xiao has invited Susan Roberts and Li Chen to his house for a farewell dinner before Susan returns to Canada. Li Chen, Susan, glad you could make it. Please, come in. Welcome to my home. You have a beautiful place, Wang Xiao.
It is very nice. How large is your apartment?
150 square meters. There are 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen. Say, why don't I just give you a tour? That's a great idea. Follow me. On the right is the living room, and the dining room is on the left. There are 2 bedrooms on this floor, and another bedroom on the second floor.
Very nice, very nice.
The master bedroom has a private bathroom. It's quite large.
You have a nice bathtub.
Yes, there's a full-size bathtub, which is getting more and more popular among Chinese families. You're right, Wang Xiao. My parents' place doesn't have a bathtub, but my friends all plan to have a bathtub when they buy an apartment. Over here is another bedroom and bathroom, and the kitchen and a small enclosed balcony are back here. Wow, you have an oven too?
How many appliances do you have?
3. A washing machine, refrigerator, and stove. Chinese apartments usually have 3 appliances. Isn't that right, Li Chen? Yes, that's true. We don't have a dishwasher and clothes dryer like most apartments do in Canada. Now, let me show you the second floor. This way, please. The second floor has a bedroom and another room which I call the music room.
I can see why. There's a piano, guitar, violin, and drums. I didn't know you were a musician, Wang Xiao.
Me either, Wang Xiao. You've been hiding your musical talents from us. Would you play something for us? Maybe another time. It's almost time for dinner. Let's go downstairs.
This is a very spacious apartment, Wang Xiao, and you're still a bachelor. Why did you choose this place as your home?
Well, there are two main reasons. One reason why I bought this apartment is to provide my parents with a place to stay when they visit. How often do your parents visit you? About 2 to 3 times a year. They usually stay for about a month each time.
And the second reason?
Well, Susan, it's true that I'm still a bachelor, but I hope to marry someday and have a family. This apartment is big enough for a small family, and the neighborhood is really friendly and safe. So you're planning ahead? That's right, Li Chen.
Good thinking, Wang Xiao. You'll never know when you'll meet that special someone.
Well, I definitely know it's time for dinner. Let's sit down at the dining table and eat a special dinner in honor of
Describing
Susan.
people. Sample Study 1. The child I like to describe is my neighbor's son. I first met him when he moved into our neighborhood to live with his parents. Previously, he had been living with his grandparents in another city. I guess he looks like a typical Chinese boy. He has short black hair and dark brown eyes. He's a bit overweight and of average height for a 7-year-old boy. I think he's a cute kid, especially when he laughs and smiles. As for his personality, I'd say that he's a very outgoing, friendly, happy, and active. He knows all the neighbors and greets them with a loud voice whenever he sees them. He loves to play all kinds of games, and I often see him with his friends running all around our compound, or playing soccer, or just having a good time. I think that this little boy is really inspiring. Every time I see him, I feel really happy because he's so happy to say hello to me. It makes me think that whatever I'm worrying about is not really that important, and it encourages me to be friendly to others as well. I love the way children are so free from problems and stresses, and especially this little boy. He just loves life and enjoys each day fully.
Sample Study 2. One of my close friends is Jenny. Jenny is 2 years older than I and is now studying computer science at university. She gives the impression of being pretty simple, but she's really smart and also does very well in school. We met through a mutual friend who introduced us to each other. This mutual friend is my classmate and also Jenny's cousin. One time when I was at my friend's home, Jenny came to visit her, so she introduced me to her. Jenny and I both like going to a park and just walking around. We talk quite a lot about everything and enjoy the peaceful environment of the park. I think that's what we like to do most. Another thing that we often do is go shopping together. We have similar tastes in clothes and music, so we like to go shopping with each other too. I really like Jenny because she's so easy to be around. She's not demanding and pushy like some people I know. We don't have to plan everything in detail when we get together. We just do whatever comes to mind. I think that Jenny understands me the most, even more than her cousin, who is my classmate. Jenny and I can share anything. She tells me about what she's going through, and I tell her about my problems. I've never had such a close friend who really cared about me and wasn't trying to get something from me. I guess the best thing is that our friendship is not selfish. We both want the very best for each
Describing
other.
items and events. 1. Describing items. Sample study.
One of my favorite toys is a remote control car. It's mostly made of plastic, and it takes 4 batteries to operate. It's a miniature version of a sports car, so it has these cool designs on it. I bought it at a toy store in downtown Beijing. I had saved up some money and had been planning to buy it for a long time. When I had enough money, I went with my friend to the toy store, and we stood there for a long time trying to decide which model to buy. Finally, I chose a car that looked like a Porsche. Basically, there are two parts to it: the remote control and the car. Sometimes I just play with it by myself. I imagine that I'm a race car driver, and I put all these obstacles on the floor and try to drive around them as quickly as possible. But the best way to play is to race against another car. Some of my friends also have a remote control car, so we make all these race courses and then see whose car is the fastest. I guess I'm a bit too old to still be playing with toy cars, but a remote control car is still a lot of fun for me. When I'm racing my car, I try to imagine that I'm actually the driver in a real race, which makes it very exciting. Also, I've made a lot of friends just by racing my car. First, my friend and I started racing cars in front of our building. Then, a few other kids came along and wanted to join in. Even some adults wanted to watch and have a turn. So now we have a regular group of friends who bring their cars to race each other. I don't know if it sounds silly, but it's really fun. I do hope to own a real car one day, but I doubt I'll be able to afford a race car
2.
or a Porsche.
Describing past events. Sample study. An exciting period in my life was when I was in elementary and middle school. Actually, it wasn't during school, but during the summer holidays when I was an elementary and middle school student. Every year for about 7 summers, my parents sent me to see my grandparents who lived by the seaside. I guess I started going when I was about 6 years old until I was 13. There were a lot of good things about going to see my grandparents, but the best thing was that my cousins also spent the summer with my grandparents. So every summer, 4 of us cousins would meet at my grandparents' home and spend about 5 weeks together by the seaside. My cousins and I are all pretty close in age. My oldest cousin is about 3 years older than my youngest cousin. I am the second oldest of the cousins. My grandparents were always very happy to have us, even though their apartment was quite crowded and we all had to share a room. What did we do? We did a lot. Every day we went to the seaside to swim or play in the sand or collect shells. We're all very good swimmers now, even though at first we were scared, just like everyone else. Every summer we started a new seashell collection. We'd go up and down the beach looking for interesting or beautiful shells. Most of the time, we just found some common-looking shells. But once my cousin found a really pretty shell that was pink, red, yellow, and brown. When we were younger, we would build things in the sand and also bury each other's legs. Sometimes we would pretend to hunt for treasure. There were so many things to do there. I have so many happy memories about spending summers with my grandparents and cousins. Going to the seaside was a nice break from living in the city and going to school every day. We didn't have to think about homework or school pressure. The other good thing about going to my grandparents' place was seeing my cousins. We all lived far away from each other, so we didn't normally get a chance to spend time together. Now we still live in different cities, but we're very close friends and we call each other all the time. It is great to have cousins to talk to and get
Describing
advice
places
from.
and changes. 1. Describing places. Sample study. I really like to visit this park, which is not too far from my home. It's located behind the Rosedale Hotel and is just east of the Lido Hotel. It's called the Lido Park. You can either enter the park through the west gate or the east gate. The park is really beautiful. It's got quite a few different areas and it is very peaceful. There are pathways all around the park and a lot of grass and trees. There are 2 ponds, a small one where you can try to fish for goldfish in the summertime, and a very large pond where you can go skating in the wintertime. Near the large pond is a picnic area where you can sit down and relax. It's nice and shady because there are many tall trees nearby. There's also a play area for small children with games and rides, a restaurant and a snack bar, and an indoor swimming pool. I first found the park a few years ago after a friend told me about it. I went to see it for myself, but it was actually a bit hard to find the way to get in because the entrances were not very prominently marked. When I first went there, I was pleasantly surprised at how large the park was. There were so many different parts of it: the small pond, the large pond, the children's area, the swimming area, and some other grassy areas where children could play. I just walked along the pathways to get an idea of what the park was like. My first visit to the Lido Park made me want to return again and again. I even thought about buying a monthly pass instead of buying a single ticket each time. Actually, I didn't buy the monthly pass because I knew I wouldn't be able to visit the park as often as I would like to. I love going to the Lido Park because it makes me feel relaxed and happy. It's so peaceful to walk along the paths or just sit down by the large pond and think. I like to watch the children playing in the children's area because they are so excited and energetic. It's a nice break from city life. I usually go to the Lido Park whenever I feel like I need some space to unwind and think.
2. Describing changes. Sample study.
I guess one of the biggest changes that has happened in the last few years in my hometown has been the increase of parks and trees around the city. Now there are many beautiful parks in every area of the city. There is a lot more grass, trees, and flowers. I'm not entirely sure what caused the change, but I believe it is partly because China is becoming more open to the rest of the world. More and more foreign companies, businesses, and schools are interested in starting up in China. The 2008 Olympics was held in Beijing. China has gained entry into WTO. So, I believe that the Chinese government has been trying to improve the environment of each major city, and making more green spaces has been one of the ways to do this. At first, everyone thought the government was crazy to turn shops and housing into areas for grass and trees. Frankly, it seemed like a waste of space. I heard that people were not happy with being forced to move out of their homes so that a small park could be built. However, now that the parks have been completed, they are very popular for both the young and the old. Adding parks, grass, and trees and flowers has made a big difference in improving the looks of my city and in making us more proud of our city. I think the change is really great. These small parks have added a great deal of beauty to our city. People enjoy sitting in the park and talking with friends. It's nice to have a quiet and peaceful place to go after a busy day of
Describing
work.
programs and books. 1. Describing programs. Sample study. I think that Happy Dictionary is probably one of the most popular TV programs in China. It is a weekly 1-hour quiz show, which is on every Friday at about 10 p.m. and repeated the next day, that is Saturday, at about 11 a.m. Each time they invite about 6 guests to participate as well as a group of spectators to watch the show. First of all, the participants have to compete on certain questions to see who can be the main examinee. Then the examinee has to answer up to 12 questions and gets a prize according to the number of questions he or she answers correctly. I guess that both young people and elderly people watch this program, especially those who want to have a relaxing evening. The show is a very popular one for several reasons. Firstly, it is fun to watch. Some participants are really nervous, while some look like they have things under control. Secondly, it is actually a quiz with lots of interesting questions closely related to everyday life. While watching, people can also test themselves on these questions. They can enlarge their range of common knowledge by watching it. Anyway, it is really popular because the program is not only fun and relaxing to watch, but also educational. People learn through the games, and what's more, the host and hostess are quite entertaining
2.
too.
Describing books. Sample study. One of my favorite books is called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, written by John Gray, who is an American. I read it last year during my summer holidays. A friend of mine recommended it to me and lent me her copy. The book basically gives advice about how to understand men and women and how to communicate better with each other. Its main idea is that men and women are from different planets, and we cannot assume that our way of communication is similar. In fact, we should assume that it is quite different. This book was really an eye-opener for me. I had never thought about men and women in this way before. It helped me to understand better why men are the way they are, and also why women do the things they do. All the information was so well presented that it was easy to accept and understand, and it wasn't offensive or derogatory to either men or women. Reading this book has been very helpful for me to understand my boyfriend better. At first, I wanted him to be just like me and thought it was strange why he was different. Now I can accept him to be the way he is, and I know that he's really just from another planet. I have read the book 3 times now. Whenever I start to misunderstand my boyfriend, I go back to the book and reread it again. It always helps me to get a better perspective on our
Describing
relationship.
stories and ideas. 1. Describing stories. Sample study. I recently heard of a poor widow in Gansu province who didn't have enough money for her son to continue going to school. I read this in a Chinese newspaper not too long ago. The son was a very good student, always first or second in his class, and very well liked by his classmates and teachers. When he told his teachers that he was going to quit school so that he could find a job, they were really surprised. His teachers found out that his mother could not afford to pay for her son's school fees, so they started to talk among themselves to see what they could do. Some of the teachers wanted to donate some money, while others wanted to raise money. After all their efforts, they had over 10,000 yuan, which was enough for the boy to continue his studies at middle school and high school, plus attend university for the first 2 years. I was really touched by the story because it's nice to hear about people helping each other. That doesn't always happen in big cities, where everyone is so busy with their own lives. The people in the countryside can really give us a good lesson about how to live and take care of each other.
2. Describing ideas. Sample study. My dream home is a large apartment located in downtown Beijing. It has at least 3 bedrooms and is at least 100 square meters large. There's also a fairly large kitchen, an open area for the dining room and the living room, and a bathroom with a bathtub. My ideal home is bright and sunny. It has wooden floors and wooden doors. Not the dark kind of wood, but a fairly light color of wood. The bedrooms all have windows facing south or east, and the living and dining rooms also have large windows which let in a lot of sunlight throughout the day. The kitchen has a stove and oven, enough room for a refrigerator and a sink. The bathroom is tiled and has a large bathtub, a toilet, and a sink with counters all around. There is also enough room in the bathroom for the washing machine. I want my ideal home to be in the downtown area of Beijing so that I can be just steps away from restaurants and shops. Maybe there will be several tall apartment buildings in my area. There will also be some parks and play areas for children. Most of my neighbors will be young professionals, and maybe some young families. This kind of home is perfect for me because I love to be where the action is. I can't imagine not living in the downtown area because I love to be walking on the streets, shopping, trying out new restaurants, and seeing some shows. I also want to live close to my work so that I don't have to travel very far each day. So my home will be like my small island of peace amidst the hustling and bustling of downtown Beijing. Whenever I want some excitement, I'll just step outside. And when I want some quiet time, I'll just go back to my home.
Describing shopping experiences and movies. 1. Describing shopping experiences. Sample study.
Last December, I traveled to Thailand for a holiday. In Bangkok, there is a very popular market that's only open on the weekends. It's called the Chatuchak Market, and it has about 7,000 vendors. I went to the market early on Saturday morning. It was very hot, but not too crowded. There were so many different things for sale, not just things for tourists, but also all kinds of clothes, shoes, bags, jewelry, household goods, books, food and drinks. Everything was very cheap, and the quality was also good. The vendors were also very kind and helpful. I bought a couple of shirts, some English books, and a leather wallet. After a while, I was very hot and thirsty, so I also bought some water and ice cream. Shopping in the Chatuchak Market was memorable because it was such a huge market and you could buy almost anything there. It was impossible to see the entire place, so I just walked around and looked at things that interested me. In fact, at one point, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to find the way out. At about 1:30 p.m., the market was getting very crowded, and I was getting hot and tired, so I decided to leave. If you're ever in Bangkok on the weekend, I would suggest that you visit the market. 2. Describing a movie. Sample study.
Last week, I saw a DVD called Ratatouille. It's actually a children's movie made by Disney, but it's also very entertaining for adults. I watched Ratatouille at my friend's home when we had a party to celebrate his birthday. The story is basically about a friendship between a rat named Remy and a young man named Linguini. The rat loves to cook and dreams of becoming a real cook one day. He reads a cookbook written by a famous chef, Chef Gusteau. Remy's father doesn't support his dreams and wants him to be a normal rat. The young man, Linguini, has trouble keeping a job and finding his way in life. One day, he is hired to work in a famous restaurant, but actually, he can't cook at all. So, Remy and Linguini form a partnership, which they hide from everyone else. Remy guides Linguini by hiding under his hat and pulling his hair to make Linguini's hands move. In this way, they make many delicious dishes together. I liked Ratatouille because it has very good computer animation, and there are also some good lessons. They are about following your dreams, even if others don't support you, facing the consequences of not being honest, and the importance of being a loyal friend. There were also many funny moments in the movie. Ratatouille is a good movie for both children and adults. I would recommend it to everyone.
Description. Sample Study 1. Can you describe the main function of newspapers? On the whole, newspapers are meant to provide information about current events in our communities, our cities, our country, and our world. The journalists work hard to make sure stories are accurate, interesting, and up to date. Most people buy a newspaper because they want to read the latest news. They often look at the newspaper headlines to see what the top stories are. However, newspapers also provide other information besides news. Some people want to read the advertisements more than the news. These people are often looking for a job or eager to find a good price for something they want to buy. Newspapers also have many advertisements that tell about which companies are hiring employees, what new products are available, and other opportunities that everyone should try. So, I would have to say that there are two main functions of newspapers. The first one is to provide current news, and the second function is advertising.
Sample Study 2. What role does music play in our life? Music plays a large role in our lives, but its effect is not always obvious. Babies learn through music. They can learn new ideas, such as knowledge about animals and many other things, and even learn their own language through the use of music. Children love to sing and dance to express their happiness. Teenagers often find music helpful to express their feelings. Adults listen to music to relax after a stressful day. And elderly people frequently gather together in parks to dance or sing. This is their form of entertainment and enjoyment. So you can see that throughout our lifetime, music plays a significant role in each stage of our lives.
Disagreement. Sample Study 1. Do you think that advertisements help people make choices? In my opinion, advertisements are useful in helping people make choices. They provide information about what products are available and how much they cost. Without advertisements, people would only buy something they already know about, even though a better product might be available. Of course, we should also remember that the main purpose of advertisements is to make money for the company. People should learn to be careful when looking at advertisements so that they do not get cheated.
Sample Study 2. Do you agree with the idea that we are too dependent on technology today? Yes, I believe we are absolutely too dependent on technology these days. You only have to see what happens when something breaks down to know that we are heavily dependent on technology. Let me give you a few examples. In communicating with one another, people used to visit each other to talk. Later, they would talk by telephone. Now, people send emails, chat on the internet, and send messages through their mobile phones. People have moved away from face-to-face communication. At work, most companies rely heavily on computers. If there is a problem with the computer system, some employees cannot work at all. Sometimes the whole company must wait until the computers are repaired. At school, students used to do their homework by writing it out or using a typewriter. Now many students will do their homework using a computer. They are not used to writing things by hand anymore, and students' handwriting is of poorer quality than students from previous generations. So you can see that we are definitely too dependent on technology these days.
Comparison and contrast. Sample Study 1. Can you compare the transportation we have now with what we had in the past? Well, despite all the changes that have occurred over the years, one thing that has remained more or less the same is the bicycle. For a long time, people have loved to ride their bicycles to work or school, and for some people, it is the best and only way to travel. Some things that have changed have been the number of cars on the road. There's no comparison between now and the past. There are many more privately owned cars than before. Another main difference is that the public bus system has improved. Buses are more modern and comfortable, and there are many convenient bus routes to take people where they want to go. In some bigger cities that have underground transportation, the subway systems have all been improved and modernized. So, almost all these changes have been for the better. The only thing that has not improved are the traffic jams, but perhaps we will never get rid of them.
Sample Study 2. What is the difference between weekday clothes and weekend clothes? Weekday clothes are usually more formal than weekend clothes because on weekdays people are usually going to work, whereas on the weekend they are free to relax, stay at home, or go out. Actually, that probably is true for working people. They usually dress nicely or wear a uniform for work. On the weekend, they can choose whatever they want to wear. I suppose some people might dress up more on the weekend than they do for their jobs, while others would dress more casually on weekends. For students, they usually wear their school uniform on weekdays and can choose to wear whatever they want on weekends. For the very young and the very old, there is probably not much difference between their weekday clothes and weekend clothes, since they do not go to school or work. They can freely choose to wear whatever they want.
Sample Study 1. Based on the benefits and disadvantages tourism brings, what do you think of tourism? From my point of view, tourism is basically a good way for a country to generate income from outside sources. I mean that instead of taking money from the citizens of a country, people from other countries bring money into your country, which helps your country to prosper. A further advantage of tourism is jobs. Tourism provides many jobs to people, and this is good for the country's economy and also for society. If people are employed, they can help their country's economy to grow. In addition, they won't have too much time to complain and get into trouble. What I mean is that when people are working and making their own money, they are less likely to commit crimes in order to get things they cannot normally afford. So this is good for society because it helps people to be responsible citizens. Just from these two examples, you can see that overall, tourism is a good thing.
Sample Study 2. What do you think about the balance between work and leisure? I don't think some people are good at balancing work and leisure. There are people who work 12 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. Their work is very demanding, and they have little time to rest. Some people enjoy working long hours and don't mind missing out on leisure time. They are called workaholics. Others are very unhappy about their jobs. Money is no longer a problem, but they don't have any time to enjoy the money they make. I suppose that some jobs require very long hours, and that each person can choose to take a demanding job with high pay or a less demanding job with regular hours and slightly less pay. Personally, I think that money isn't everything. I would take a job that has regular hours and slightly less pay, as long as I have enough money to live on.
Sample Study 1. In what ways do you think people will change their eating habits in the future? This is a hard question. In my opinion, it's quite likely that as the standard of living rises, people will be more selective about what foods they want to eat. They will try different foods, more expensive foods, and foods from other countries. There's a good chance that there will be more restaurants, many more restaurants with food from different countries and better quality of food and presentation. Another change I predict is that people will want more convenience and fast foods. At home, they will buy pre-packaged and ready-to-eat meals so that they don't have to spend as much time shopping and cooking. As people become busier with their jobs, they will want to eat their meals more quickly so that they have more time for other things.
Sample Study 2. How much of today's technology will still be used in 50 years' time? This is a very interesting question for me. Actually, I think that there's a good chance that none of today's technology will be used in 50 years' time. The reason, I think, is because technology is advancing at such a fast pace that much of what we use nowadays did not exist even 10 or 20 years ago. And if we consider what technology was like 50 years ago, we can already see how fast things have developed and changed. By looking back 50 years, we can already see what 50 years of progress in technology looks like. And there's no doubt that future technology will have a completely different look and approach. Technology in 50 years' time may very well be so vastly different from today's technology that people will laugh at our backwardness and simple lives. It's exciting and thought-provoking to just think what might happen with developments in technology.
Frequently asked questions in the third part of the IELTS test.
Transportation. Can you describe the transportation in your city? What kind of transportation do you prefer and why? What is the difference between transportation means, such as planes, trains, and cars? Can you compare the transportation in the past and now? What are the benefits and disadvantages of buying a car? Can you imagine transportation in the future and describe it to me?
Music. Do you prefer to listen to music alone or with friends? What is the role music plays in our life? What kind of music do you like and why? Is music important in your life? Why is it easier for children to learn music than adults? Do you think it is useful for a child to learn to play a musical instrument?
Natural beauty. Can you describe a popular place of natural beauty in your country? What can we do to protect the natural beauty of the country? What measures has the government taken to protect natural scenery? What is an ideal place of natural beauty for you?
Food. Do you like cooking, and what is your favorite dish? What kind of eating habits do you have? Tell me something about food in China. Would you prefer to eat with friends or to eat alone? What is the difference between meals people have today and in the past? What are the benefits and disadvantages of inviting people to eat at home or in a restaurant? In what way do you think people will change their eating habits in the future? What do you think of science in food production?
Gifts. What do you think is the best present for children? When do people usually exchange gifts in China? Compare the gifts given today with those given 20 years ago. How important are brand names when you are buying gifts? Do you think that advertisements help people make choices? What kinds of gifts do you think would be popular in the future?
Friends. By what ways do people make friends? What is the difference between adults making friends and children making friends? What is the most important factor you need to think about when you make friends? What are the possible reasons which cause friends to break up? How important is friendship to people and why?
Family. What is the typical structure of a Chinese family? Would you consider your family a typical Chinese family, and why? What are the advantages and disadvantages of traditional families in China? What are the differences of families in the past and today, and what caused the changes? Can you compare the lifestyle of your grandparents' generation with that of yours? Does the government have any policies to deal with family relationships? Can you imagine what families will be like in the future?
Reading. In what way does reading help people? Do you discuss your reading with your friends? Compare the popular readings now with those 20 years ago. How important is reading to people? Are e-books more preferred than paper books, and why?
Clothes. What kind of clothes do people like to wear nowadays? What is the difference between weekday clothes and weekend clothes? Can you tell me something about the clothes students wear nowadays? What is the attitude that old people have towards youngsters' clothes? Can you imagine clothes in the future? Is it very important to follow the latest fashion?
Sports. Can you describe the benefits of taking sports? Why do people support certain sports teams? What is the importance of sporting competitions at the international level? Do you agree that sports should be a hobby only instead of a career? What do you think of the commercial activities of sports stars? What is the role of the government in providing funding for sports facilities? Why do some companies sponsor sports people and events?
Skills. Are there traditional skills in your country, and what are they? Do you think it is necessary to learn these traditional skills? What can the government do to preserve traditional skills? What is the most important skill nowadays? What kinds of skills are popular in your country?
Accommodation. What kind of accommodation do you prefer? What are the advantages and disadvantages of living in your place? What is the difference between your grandfather's house and your building? What changes would you like to make to your place? Can you imagine what your home will be like in 20 years?
Buildings. What are people's attitudes towards old buildings? Should we preserve old traditional buildings, and why? What characteristics should a perfect building have? What roles do old and modern buildings play in the society? Can you compare buildings 20 years ago and buildings today?
News. How do you find out about news every day? How important is it to you to keep up with the news every day? What type of international news are you interested in? What is the main function of the newspaper? Can you compare news from TV, radio, the internet, and newspapers? Do you think that the newspaper is reliable as a source of information? How much do you believe in the news? How much power do you think journalists have in influencing the readers?
Festivals. What is the media's role in festivals in your country? Can you compare the festivals celebrated in China and those celebrated in Western countries? What are the typical ways that people celebrate the main festival in your country? How important is it for people to have festivals?
Weather. Which season do you like the best and why? How does weather influence people's lives? Do you like hot countries or cold countries, and why? How important is the weather forecast in our lives? What do you think of global warming?
Study. Is there any difference between study in the past and study now? Should schools teach non-academic courses? Why is learning English very useful nowadays? How important is study for children? Is it useful for old people to continue to study too?
Modern technology. Tell me some of the machines we use in our homes today. What are the negative effects technology has on people? Can you tell me any of the negative effects technology has had on the individual? Do you agree with the idea that we are too dependent on technology today? Can you compare the attitudes of men and women to technology? How much of today's technology will still be used in 50 years' time?
Tourism. What are the typical ways that people take holidays in your country? Are holiday expectations now different from those of your parents, grandparents? Why are holidays very important for people? Can you describe some main tourist attractions? What are the effects of tourism on local people and their environment? Can you talk about the future changes in tourism 10 years from now? What measures could be taken to reduce the negative effects of tourism? Test 1.
Good afternoon. I am Peter. Can you tell me your full name, please?
My full name is Zhang Ling.
Can I see your identification, please?
Here you are.
Thanks. Now, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Can we talk about where you live?
I live close to the campus of Beijing Language and Culture University. It is in the Haidian district of Beijing. The building I live in is a 6-story apartment building for teachers.
What do you like the best about where you live now?
The best thing for me is the surrounding area. It is a very quiet place, and the gym is very close. I can do physical exercises whenever I want.
Okay, let's move on to talk about shopping. Where do you shop every day?
There is a supermarket called Wufu within about 15 minutes walk. Normally, I shop there for 1 week's groceries. As for some small things I need occasionally, I just go to one of the small stores on campus. There are a couple right next to our building.
How do you choose your shopping place?
Well, first of all, I prefer a place which is easier to get to. It would be great if it is just in the neighborhood. Then I like stores with a variety of goods, so I can have my choices. Of course, the price is also something I am concerned about.
Do you enjoy watching films?
Yes, I do. I used to watch films a lot. Watching films with friends is so much fun, especially when I finish all my work.
How often do you watch films?
I used to watch films about once a week, but now I cannot afford that. And at the same time, I am also busier with my work. I go to films quite irregularly. Probably, maybe about once or twice a month now.
Do people generally prefer watching films at home or in the cinema?
People probably prefer watching films at home, I guess. Of course, the effect is a lot better in the cinema, but the tickets are too expensive nowadays for common people, and sometimes the cinemas are too far away from home. So it is easier to just stay home and watch films on TV.
Now, I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you want to say. You can make notes if you like. All right? Remember, you will have 1 minute to prepare. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now?
Definitely, the person in my family who is most similar to me is my mother. Many people have told us that we look alike, and I also notice a striking similarity between us. My mother is of average height and on the thin side. She has short, thick black hair and she wears glasses. I don't wear glasses now, but I used to. She has brown, sparkling eyes and a round face. My mother is the kind of person who can welcome anyone and make them feel at home. She really cares for people and is willing to open her home to them. Sometimes she is a bit fussy about being organized and having a clean home. I have a similar personality to my mother's. I love to care for people and enjoy helping them out. I enjoy welcoming others to have dinner with me, and my friends always tell me all their problems. Like my mother, I'm also sometimes upset when my home is messy. But I don't think I get quite as upset as my mother used to when I was a child.
So, we have been talking about your family, and now I'd like to discuss with you some general questions related to this. What is a traditional family like in your country?
Well, give me 1 second. I'd say that a traditional family in China is the one with 3 generations living together under one roof. Elderly people in China are not used to living alone by themselves or staying in nursing homes, and their children won't let them do that either. So they always stay with their own children and help with raising their grandkids. And at the same time, it seems that the grandparents also have the highest authority over the house.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of a traditional family?
The advantages, I think, are that it is easier to take care of each other while living together, and a big family also brings a feeling of warmth. Of course, there are some disadvantages as well. First of all, it is not easy to get along with each other since everyone wants his own way. Then it is extremely crowded because most of the families have limited space. And old people may feel lonely too while the kids are all at work.
Would you consider your own family a typical traditional family?
No, I wouldn't say so. Although my grandparents love us very much, they wouldn't choose to live with us. Back in their city, they have lots of friends and former colleagues to talk to. It is easier for them to have a life there. I myself also stay in my own apartment, although my parents live very close. My family is kind of loose geographically, although we do care about each other.
Does the government have any policies to deal with family relationships?
Any policies? I am not sure about it. Some policies are to encourage people to improve family relationships. For instance, some families are chosen to be model families, and sometimes they even get a bonus for that. But as for some big policies to improve family relationships, no, I don't think so.
That is all for the interview. Thank you. You may leave now.
Thanks.
Test
Goodbye.
2.
Good morning. I am Susan.
Good morning. I am Li Jianxin.
What shall I call you?
You can call me Jianxin. That's what my friends call me.
Okay, now, first of all, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Can you tell me about your study?
Right now, I am a freshman in Beijing University, majoring in English. I attend classes every day during the weekdays, and they include compulsory courses like intensive reading, writing, oral English, and some elective courses as well.
Why did you choose English as your major?
Actually, I didn't do well in English when I was in middle school. Later, while catching up, I gradually found English quite interesting. My English teacher in high school was a great help too. At the same time, English is getting more and more important to China, so I decided to choose it as my major.
What do you hope to do after your studies?
I will see what will happen later, but if everything works out, I want to be working in a travel agency. mainly dealing with international travel, so I can travel constantly from country to country.
Let's move on to talk about your childhood. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town called Baoxin. I spent my entire childhood there with my family until later I went to high school in Chengdu at the age of 14.
Where did you usually play?
Luckily, we lived by a small river, and to the north of our home there was a hill. I used to play with the kids, swimming in the river and climbing the hill. The river was clean, and the hill was covered with beautiful trees.
Let's move on to talk about housework. Who usually does the housework in your family?
My parents share the housework. My mother usually does most of the cooking, while cleaning is normally my father's responsibility. But it also depends on who is busier.
What do you think is the most important household task?
I think cooking is the most important one. Eating is one of the biggest parts of our lives. It is hard work, especially when we need to do it every day. Cooking skills are involved.
Now I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you want to say. You can make notes if you like. Can you start talking now?
The most popular sport in China is football. You can almost play it anywhere, as long as you have a large enough area. I've seen people play it on football fields, on empty roads, on driveways, and in parking lots just about everywhere. Mostly boys enjoy football. Starting from elementary school until college, boys love to get together and play football. Young men love it too. As for the reasons, I think, first of all, it's very accessible. Almost anyone can play football. You don't need to have expensive lessons or equipment to be able to play football. The second reason is because football is a team sport. Once you play together on a team with your friends, you'll become addicted to playing it again and again. It's so exciting to play as a team and win as a team, though losing is not that exciting. But it's fun to be part of a team. For me, I used to dislike football. Actually, I'm not that athletic, so I was never one of the first players to be chosen for a team. Later, I learned how to play. It always made me so happy when my friends cheered for me. I finally started to enjoy playing football because I could see that I was able to help the team. Now, if one of my friends calls me to play football, I'll drop everything and play.
Can you describe the typical ways people in your country get involved in sports?
I am not sure how to put that into categories. Anyway, there are probably 3 patterns, I suppose. The first is that people do sports by competing with each other. They find it more fun when there are competitions. The second are those who just do sports for keeping fit. They go jogging, swimming, etc., in the gym or in the roads without any pressure. The final one, I guess, are those who like outdoor activities like hiking, traveling, rock climbing, and surfing. They have fun, and at the same time, they are also doing sports.
Do you think that children should start sports at a very early age?
I think so. Actually, sports should be a part of people's lives, and it is better for children to learn when they are young. Doing sports can help a child to grow up healthy, I think. The only thing is that they should not be involved in any dangerous things or take any risks.
Why are sports very important to people?
Sports are very important to people for a couple of reasons. First of all, it improves people's health, as everyone can see. Then, it provides a way to get away from the hectic life and stop thinking about work pressures. Finally, it also helps people to cooperate with each other and work as a team.
How do you see sports in about 20 years' time?
It's hard to imagine that. I guess that sports at that time will be even more important than it is now. People will need less and less physical power for their daily living, and technology is developing fast with inventions which will replace people for all kinds of work. Then people will absolutely do more sports to keep fit. And there could also be new ways of doing sports.
Thank you very much. That is the end of the interview. Goodbye.
Nice talking to you. Bye.